Welcome to Washington Today on C-SPAN Radio for Friday, September 13th, 2024. Former President Donald Trump, the Republican presidential nominee, says he will conduct a mass deportation of immigrants living in Springfield, Ohio, and he calls controversial activist Laura Loomer, who's been traveling with him, a free spirit, all part of his news conference at his golf course near Los Angeles. Democratic vice presidential nominee Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota talks about student loan forgiveness in the university town of East Lansing, Michigan. White House is encouraging Boeing and the Machinists union to bargain in good faith now that a strike is underway. President Joe Biden welcomes British Prime Minister Keir Starmer to the White House. One of the topics, whether Ukraine can use Western-supplied long-range missiles to hit Russian targets. And NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams make their first public comments from the International Space Station about being stuck in space for months instead of a few days because of the problems with the Boeing Starliner capsule. KTVU-TV in Oakland, California writes former President Donald Trump, fresh off his debate with Vice President Kamala Harris, is spending time in California on Friday, first in Los Angeles and then in the Bay Area. Donald Trump started off his day at the Trump National Golf Course in Rancho Palos Verdes for a news conference. After that, he'll head up north to a Woodside fundraiser in San Mateo County. Tickets cost as much as $250,000 a person. That was reporting from KTVU-TV. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump started the news conference by talking about his Democratic opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris.
I'm here today in California with a very simple message for the American people. We cannot allow Comrade Kamala Harris and the communist left to do to America what they did to California. The state of California is a mess with people leaving, and nothing's going to stop them. They're going to other states. Some are going to other countries. But what they've done, Gavin Newsom and Kamala, I'd almost say Kamala more so, she destroyed San Francisco and she destroyed the state. When you look at the kind of destruction that's taken place, it's all man-made or woman-made destruction too. It's things that should have never happened, but we're not going to let that happen with 4 more years of her in the White House, because if you have what happened to this country is what they allowed to happen in California and San Francisco, one of the great cities of the world 15 years ago, and today it's not in a very good position, put it mildly, and the state, which is probably the best piece of real estate in the world, the state, you have the sunshine, you have the ocean, you have everything, you have the perfect weather, the best weather, and they've hurt it so badly, so badly.
Donald Trump opening his news conference at the Trump National Golf Course in Rancho Palos Verdes, California, about 30 miles from Los Angeles. When it came time for reporters' questions, the first few concerned the presidential debate a few days ago. Laura Loomer, an activist who has been traveling with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's accusations against Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio.
On the debate, first of all, I know you've said that you will not do another debate. Some of your own Republican allies have come out and said that you missed the mark, that you missed an opportunity.
No, excuse me. Most of my Republican allies had said I was great in the debate. You're just like, a lot of other people.
Will you really
Fox.
not do another debate?
Well, why don't you say 94% of the Republicans said I did phenomenally in the debate. Some said that I could have been tougher. I don't know how I could have been tougher when I said he's the worst president and she is the worst vice president in the history of our country. 94% of the Republicans, and the only one that wouldn't would maybe a Mitt Romney or somebody like that. But we've gotten great praise for the debate, and based on the polls, like Rasmussen being up 6 today, the first poll out, based on the polls, obviously I did well in the debate. Also based on the debate polls, where I sometimes had, in one case, 92% win. So, look, you come from Fox. You shouldn't play the same game as everybody.
Is there anything to
Go ahead.
What would you say to your Republican colleagues or your allies who are concerned about your close relationship with Laura Loomer?
Well, I don't know what they would say. Laura's been a supporter of mine, just like a lot of people are supporters, and she's been a supporter of mine. She speaks very positively of the campaign. I'm not sure why you asked that question, but Laura is a supporter. I don't control Laura. Laura has to say what she wants.
Your allies have expressed concern.
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, I can't tell Laura what to do. Laura's a supporter. I have a lot of supporters. So I don't know what exactly you're referring to.
Mr. President,
That's okay.
Mr. President.
I just don't know. Laura's a supporter. I don't know.
But she made racist remarks
She is
the day
a
before.
strong person. She's got strong opinions, and I don't know what she said, but that's not up to me.
But the day of the debate, she said something racist.
Laura Loomer was traveling with you on your plane.
Okay, a lot of people do. It's a very big plane.
She has been traveling with you. She made racist remarks about your opponent. She also espoused conspiracy theories about 9/11. Do you disavow those remarks? And
well, I have to see what the remarks are.
Why do you
You're telling me
with her?
for the first time we're here discussing the destruction of San Francisco and California by a person that's running for president. So I don't even know what you're talking about. I do know that she may have said something based on what you're telling me, but I don't know what she said. But I'll go take a look and I'll put out a statement later on. But I really don't know.
Mr. President, Springfield, Ohio is experiencing a migrant crisis. Will you do an event there to show the media what's actually happening, maybe a town hall?
Well, we could, and maybe we'll do that. Where are you from?
Real America's Voice.
That's good. Very good.
Amanda Head.
They're doing a very good job. Yeah.
Mr. President.
No, I will, maybe Springfield, maybe Aurora, maybe both. We'll go there. I can say this, we will do large deportations from Springfield, Ohio. Large deportations. We're going to get these people out. We're bringing them back to Venezuela. You know, he told Biden he's not accepting anybody back. They moved all their criminals. Not all of them, but the rest are moving in now. They emptied their jails in Venezuela, emptied their criminals, emptied the nests. They call them nests of bad people. They're all now in the United States, and they're now taking over cities. It's like an invasion from within. And we're going to have the largest deportation in the history of our country, and we're going to start with Springfield and Aurora.
Mr. President, what would it take?
The mayor of Springfield, Ohio, the police chief, the Republican governor of Ohio have all debunked this story about people eating pets. And now there are bomb threats at schools and kids being evacuated. Why do you still spread this false story?
The real threat is what's happening at our border. Because you have thousands of people being killed by illegal migrants coming in and also dying. You have women dying as they come up. They're coming up in large groups. We call it a caravan. I think I came up with that name, but it's really what it is. 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 people. And you have large numbers of women being killed in those caravans coming up to this country. And then when they get here, they can go into the country and they end up being sex slaves and everything else. Those are your real problems, not the problem.
Donald Trump, former president and Republican presidential nominee, holding a news conference at the Trump National Golf Course in Rancho Palos Verdes, California. The opening statement and the Q&A from reporters together run about an hour, and you can find the full video at cspan.org. Tonight, Donald Trump holds a campaign rally in Las Vegas, Nevada. President Joe Biden responded to those claims you just heard about Haitian immigrants in Ohio and Donald Trump's threat of mass deportation. President Biden was at the White House, an event celebrating black excellence, and he'll reference his White House press secretary, Keir Jean-Pierre, who is Haitian American and spoke just before him.
I want to take a moment to say something like so many Americans like Keir, as he pointed out, a proud Haitian American community that's under attack in our country right now. Simply wrong. There's no place in America. This has to stop what he's doing. It has to stop.
President Biden at the White House. A short time later, the press secretary, Keir Jean-Pierre, spoke at the White House press briefing talking about Springfield, Ohio, a city of about 60,000, where an estimated 15,000 Haitian immigrants have settled in the past couple of years.
Conspiracy theories aside, the governor says that this influx of migrants has caused a significant strain on the healthcare and public safety system in Springfield. Does the administration acknowledge that? We talk to them about it.
And I said this in my answer prior. We've been in touch with Springfield since the spring. We've been in touch with them. DHS has, and we've been offering assistance to them, and that is something that we've taken very seriously. And we have been able, during in 2023, this administration, we've been collaborating with states and cities across the country, and we launched this one-stop clinic one-stop shop clinics to help eligible non-citizens get work permits and decompress their respective shelter systems. And today, those clinics have served more than 37,000 people. So that shows how we've been working with different jurisdictions across the country, and we've provided, I just mentioned, more than $1.3 billion to address the concerns that, for example, that the governor has, mayors have, and obviously in cities and towns. And so we've done that. We want to continue to help, but we also need Congress to get involved. And that's why the president took very seriously the negotiations that were happening to try to get the toughest, fairest border deal, and we were able to do that. Republicans got in the way. But $1.3 billion to help cities and states across the country is nothing to sneeze at.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre at her news conference at the White House. This is Washington Today. Lansing State Journal in Michigan writes that Minnesota Governor and Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz on Friday told a group of Democratic supporters in East Lansing that they shouldn't be underestimated during a very close campaign for president. Walz, running with Vice President Kamala Harris against former President Donald Trump and U.S. Senator J.D. Vance, spoke for about 12 minutes at the Graduate Hotel across from MSU's campus before his motorcade rushed him away to visit a Democratic field office where he spoke with volunteers. That was from the Lansing State Journal. Here is Governor Walz at that hotel.
Those guys run for office telling you the government doesn't work and it's broken, then they get elected and prove it because they don't do a damn thing. They shut down the government, they vote against things, they get tax cuts to the wealthy, they drive up the deficit and they say, oh, we don't have enough money for education, we don't have enough money for health care. Every other nation in the world can figure out how to do paid family and medical leave. Our country should sure be able to do that. You shouldn't have to lose your job if your kid's sick or you're recovering from chemotherapy treatment. Those are basic things. So that's right, when you do that, businesses grow too. So look, I know you all know this stuff. I also say I think you being here is so encouraging, but I also think you should, just embrace this idea that your generation is living with the stupid decisions that were made by previous generations in some cases. And I know this, and I say this, that hasn't always been true. The generation that came before me made it so that I could go to school at the time when I went. Yes, I know it's a long time ago, but here's the deal. This is the deal. So those who are complaining that there shouldn't be student loan relief that Joe Biden tried to do, here's the reason that is a bogus argument that you're getting something that no one else got. When I went to school, you could work a minimum wage job in the summer and pay an entire year's tuition at the University of Minnesota just by those 3 months of work. Minimum wage job to be able to do it. Because it was fronted on the front end to understand education is not a money-making endeavor. It's how we invest in you, our future economy, and innovation for this country. So those types of decisions are going to fall heavily on you. And then I would leave you with this final thought. The folks who don't want to address things like climate change, who don't want to address things like PFAS in our water, who don't want to do those things, you should be super concerned even more than me about that, because I will be dead long before you, and you're going to have to deal with it for decades to come. So the folks we're electing right now have a responsibility to you to think about the future and think about several generations ahead. And here's the thing, 53 days to make an impact that will last generations. 53 days that I can assure you the rest of the world is sitting there on wondering what the heck happened to our country when one presidential candidate on stage is yelling they eat dogs. And the other one is talking about how to make housing more affordable.
Governor Tim Walz, Democrat from Minnesota, vice presidential nominee, speaking to some students and supporters in East Lansing, Michigan, near the campus of Michigan State University. Story from Newsweek reads, a wide-ranging poll showed that about a fifth of student loan borrowers, 20%, say they have not yet made any payments, with many saying they can't afford to during the cost of living crisis. Of these respondents, some are hopeful that loan forgiveness plans may be available to them in the future. The survey was conducted online by polling company Qualtrics between August 3rd and August 19th on behalf of credit score firm Intuit Credit Karma. That was from Newsweek. And also on the U.S. presidential race, Associated Press reporting from aboard the papal plane, Pope Francis on Friday slammed both U.S. presidential candidates for what he called anti-life policies on abortion and migration, and he advised American Catholics to choose who they think is the lesser evil in the upcoming U.S. elections. Francis said both are against life, be it the one who kicks out migrants or the one who supports killing babies. Both are against life. The Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference is taking place this week at the Washington, D.C. Convention Center. A panel today was on black women in the U.S. Senate and included Prince George's County, Maryland County Executive Angela Alsobrooks, who is running for a Senate seat.
Every day that I have had the opportunity to run this race, I have run with so much passion and energy because I recognize, as the others in this room recognize, we did not get here by ourselves. In fact, the leg of the race that we are running is just that. It's a leg of the race. It's Coretta Scott King, for example, who said, freedom is never really won. That we have to win it in every single generation. And this is the leg of the race that we have the opportunity to run. But we don't forget that it's not like the race just started. There are some people who made some serious sacrifices to make sure that we could even sit on this stage. I dare even bring in the name of Sherry Beasley, our sister who ran for Senate in North Carolina. But for her courage, we know also Carol Mosley Braun. But it is a fact that we each have an obligation to run a leg of the race, and this is the one that we run. Now, I can tell you how proud I am in this moment also because I recognize that you can't represent people you don't know or understand. So when you ask why is it important for us to be there, it is because the lived experiences, there are a whole group of people whose lived experiences are not represented in the Senate, and I happen to believe that until and unless every single person of every race, of every gender, and every background sees him or herself in the Senate, our country cannot reach its potential until all of our lived experiences are represented. I would dare say also that so that it is not just beneficial to black women or women that we are in the Senate, it benefits the country in order for us and for us to be there. And our very presence changes the room. Our very presence changes the room, changes the conversation. You know, I was invited to go to the State of the Union address last year by Senator Van Hollen. And prior to the address, he invited me to a dinner in the Senate dining hall. And I went there with him. And as we sat and ate, there were two women standing in the corner of that dining room in the black uniforms. One was Latina and the other was black. And they kept looking over. I said, are they waving at me? Wait a minute, let me get up and go over, because they were smiling. I got up and went over, and they were so ecstatic. And I realized we took selfies together, we hugged. You know what I realized? They don't see themselves in the Senate, and it is the case that your mere presence, when you walk in the room, it changes the whole room. And again, and not just to our benefit, it's to the benefit of all of those who are in the Senate, because you know what? Unless and until our perspectives are represented, it's incomplete. We complete the conversation by being present, by bringing our experiences, and that's what this is about, is making sure that our policies are complete by way of having our experiences there. So this is an exciting time, and I'm so honored, but I realize that, again, all the ancestors are celebrating right now because they know what is ahead.
Angela Alsobrooks, Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate in Maryland, on a panel at the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation's annual legislative conference at the Washington, D.C. Convention Center. Others on the panel were U.S. Senator LaFonza Butler, Democrat of California, and Congresswoman Lisa Blunt Rochester, Democrat from Delaware, who is also running for the Senate seat in that state. Angela Alsobrooks' Republican opponent is former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan. He posted an ad today talking about independence.
There are 100 senators. How many can you name? 10? 5? Who stands out? The ones who make a difference. The critical swing votes who put country over party, people over politics. Like Larry Hogan, stands up to both parties, supports Roe. Hogan will be in the middle of the action, representing the center, looking out for Maryland. And isn't that what we want from our next senator?
I'm Larry Hogan, and I approve this message.
That ad posted today, and DC News Now reports that Senator Joe Manchin, independent of West Virginia, said he is endorsing former Maryland Governor Larry Hogan in his bid for U.S. Senate seat in Maryland this year. Manchin likes Hogan's embrace of more moderate policies. Manchin said, "Forget about being a Democrat or Republican. Larry Hogan is just the right person with the right attitude for the job. He's not afraid to speak against your party, and he won't be controlled by any party or any type of ideology." That reporting from DC News Now. Returning to the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Conference at the Washington, D.C. Convention Center, Congressman Stephen Horsford, Democrat of Nevada, who is chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, joined at a news conference with civil rights attorney Benjamin Crump and the families of some African Americans who've been killed by police, including Breonna Taylor, Tyree Nichols, and Sonia Massey, to talk about criminal justice reform legislation.
I want to thank Attorney Ben Crump for his tireless advocacy on behalf of these families, for Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw for putting not only your love and passion for others, but for articulating the absurdity. You use the word killability. Wow. That strikes to the core. And I think puts into just a little bit of the words of the pain and the anguish that these families feel and that so many other families fear that they could be next. So today, the Congressional Black Caucus affirms our commitment and reaffirms our commitment to the families that we are continuing to do all that we can to advance meaningful, bipartisan public safety legislation to create safer communities and to hold police officers accountable who violate the public trust accountable. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the late Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, who literally, during her process of receiving treatment before her death, ensured that this legislation was reintroduced in the House, and Senator Cory Booker, who has introduced the legislation in the Senate. As chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, our message to the families is that we want all of you to know that we are still fighting, that we are still working, and we will not stop fighting for you or the loss of your loved ones until the legislation is passed. Thank you.
Congressman Stephen Horsford, Democrat from Nevada, at a news conference on the sidelines of the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation annual legislative conference in Washington. He mentioned Kimberly Crenshaw, who was there. She is African American Policy Forum co-founder and executive director. Story from CNN, about 33,000 union members at Boeing have started to walk off the job on Friday after they overwhelmingly rejected a proposed 4-year contract with the troubled aircraft manufacturer. The strike, the first at the company in 16 years, will virtually stop commercial airplane production at one of America's biggest manufacturing giants and its largest exporter, dealing a potential blow to the U.S. economy. Depending on the length of the strike, it could cause problems for nearly 10,000 Boeing suppliers, which could be found in all 50 states. That article was from CNN. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about this.
30,000 workers are on strike for the first time in 16 years at Boeing, and Boeing CFO said this is going to impact production, deliveries, operations, and will jeopardize their recovery. So how is the president reacting to this, and what's his message to those workers?
So we're administration officials are indeed in touch with Boeing and the Machinists. So we encourage them to negotiate in good faith, which is something that we say when situations get to this level. And we believe that they need to negotiate, yes, in good faith, and work towards an agreement that gives employees benefits and that they deserve. And it would make the country, and it would make the company stronger as well. So we're in touch with the parties, and again, continue to encourage them to negotiate in good faith.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. Congressional leaders, writes Military Times, have a deal in place to patch a nearly $3 billion shortfall on Department of Veterans Affairs funding that risks endangering benefits payments as soon as next month. But veterans advocates say they are reluctant to celebrate until the final details are worked out. VA officials have warned that because of increased medical care and benefits applications in recent months, the department's budget is roughly $2.9 billion short for this fiscal year and about $12 billion short in projected fiscal 2025 needs. That was from Military Times. The bill's sponsor for the nearly $3 billion patch is Congressman Mike Garcia, Republican of California. He posted a video today.
Hi, guys. It's Congressman Mike Garcia. Hey, this message is for every veteran out there throughout the country and their families. An issue came up at my last town hall, 4-hour town hall. And one of the main issues that we were hearing was this potential shortfall in the Veterans Administration's budget. Since that town hall, we confirmed that it was, in fact, a major screw-up by the VA. They underfunded. They, frankly, didn't manage their programs correctly. And they are now facing a $2.88 billion shortfall, which would effectively translate into veterans losing between September 20th and the next fiscal year their pensions, any costs for burial rights, life insurance policies, and any VA benefits tied to their GI Bill of any flavor. This is obviously unacceptable. You have served your country. You have earned these benefits in many cases for multiple decades, and you have a contract with your government to take care of you, and especially the VA. It's unacceptable that the VA has mismanaged this. We're going to get to the bottom of how they screwed this up and why they screwed this up. But I'm also committed to solving this budget gap problem, because we cannot let your benefits lapse for one day, much less for several weeks. So stay tuned. I think we've got a great solution coming here in place, and hopefully it gets bipartisan support. This shouldn't be a Republican or Democrat issue. This should be about every single representative in this country looking out for their veterans, both in the House as well as in the Senate and at the White House, to make sure that our veterans are not impacted by this budget shortfall. So in the midst of all of this drama around other budgeting issues and election season coming up, I wanted to make sure you guys know that you as veterans and your families have not been forgotten in the noise here. We are working this. We're going to try to get something done here in short order before the cliff on September 20th hits. And you've got my commitment that I'll keep stroking on this and get it done. Take care, guys.
Congressman Mike Garcia, Republican from California, posting that video today. On Wall Street, the Dow up 297, NASDAQ up 114, S&P up 30. Washington today continues in a moment.
The House will be in order.
This year, C-SPAN celebrates 45 years of covering Congress like no other. Since 1979, we've been your primary source for Capitol Hill, providing balanced, unfiltered coverage of government, taking you to where the policy's debated and decided, all with the support of America's cable companies. C-SPAN, 45 years and counting, powered by cable.
Welcome back to Washington Today, available as a podcast wherever you find your podcasts and on the free C-SPAN Now mobile app. The independent newspaper in Great Britain reporting on the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's visit to the White House to meet with President Joe Biden, writing, Sir Keir Starmer has vowed to support Ukraine's fight for freedom. In a bilateral meeting with U.S. President Joe Biden in Washington, speaking at the White House, the UK Prime Minister said the next few weeks and months would be crucial for Kyiv's fight against Russia, which invaded Ukraine in February 2022. It comes amid reports Sir Keir and Mr. Biden could be on the cusp of allowing Kyiv to open up a new front in the war with Russia by lifting restrictions on the use of long-range missiles. Mr. Zelensky has pleaded with allies for months to allow his military to fire long-range U.S. ATACMS and British Storm Shadow missiles at Russian targets used to launch devastating daily attacks on Ukraine. But in a message apparently timed for when Sir Keir and his entourage were over the Atlantic on their way to the U.S. on Thursday, President Putin warned such a move would mean Russia would be, quote, at war with NATO. That was from The Independent. Here are the remarks by President Biden and Prime Minister Starmer during their White House meeting.
I say to you, be quiet till I speak, okay? That's what I say. Good idea?
What do you say to what about Putin's threat of war, sir? It's a serious threat.
You got to be quiet. I'm going to make a statement here, okay? All right. Anyway, Mr. Prime Minister, welcome. Welcome back to the White House. Often said, there's no issue of global consequence where the United States and Great Britain can't work together and haven't worked together. And we're going to discuss some of these things right now. First, Ukraine. I want to thank you for the UK's leadership in this front. The United States is committed to standing with you to help Ukraine as it defends against Russia's onslaught and aggression. Make it clear that Putin will not prevail in this war, and the people of Ukraine will prevail. Second, the Middle East. Today, we'll discuss our work to secure a deal in the Middle East to release the remaining hostages that are being held by Hamas, bring an immediate ceasefire, increase the flow of humanitarian aid to Gaza. And thirdly, we're going to be talking about the Indo-Pacific. No reason more important, our future. And I'm so proud that under our AUKUS partnership with Australia and with Australia, the last 3 years we've made the region more free, open, and secure. So, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you again for being here, and I look forward to our conversation.
Mr. President, thank you very much for those words. Thank you for the invitation to be back here just 2 months after our last meeting here. And it's really important as great allies, that special relationship, to have this time to talk about the global issues you have just identified, starting, of course, with Ukraine, where I think the next few weeks and months could be crucial. Very, very important that we support Ukraine in this vital war of freedom. And so I look forward to discussing that with you. The Middle East, of course, again, vital over the coming weeks and months and elsewhere in the world. And I think that historically we've shown the strength of our relationship, that we are strategically aligned, we have common cause on these global issues, and therefore it's very important for us to have this opportunity to talk them through, not just as a matter of tactics, but also the wider strategy that underpins them. So thank you for the invitation. It's very good to be here again.
Good to have you back.
What do you say to Vladimir Putin's threat of war, Mr. President?
I don't think much about Vladimir Putin.
Mr. President, can you tell us, sir, how close are you to...
President Joe Biden and the visiting British Prime Minister Keir Starmer at the White House today. Story from Reuters, Russia's FSB security service said on Friday it had revoked the accreditation of 6 British diplomats in Moscow after accusing them of spying and sabotage work, signaling the Kremlin's anger at what it sees as London's vital role in helping Ukraine. Britain described the accusations as completely baseless, saying it was tit for tat after the United Kingdom expelled the Russian defense attaché and removed diplomatic status from several Russian properties in May. That was from Reuters. From the New York Times, the United States, Canada, and Britain on Friday accused Russia's global television network RT of acting as an arm of that country's intelligence agencies, announcing new sanctions meant to cut off international financing for disinformation operations around the world. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made the announcement at the State Department today.
Last week, our government revealed how RT launders information operations through unwitting Americans to covertly disseminate Kremlin-produced content and messaging to the American public. Today, we're exposing how Russia deploys similar tactics around the world. In Germany, for example, RT covertly runs the Berlin-based English-language platform Red, a successor to the now-defunct RT-Link platform Redfish. RT also secretly runs the online platform African Stream across a wide range of social media platforms. Now, according to the outlet's website, African Stream is, and I quote, a pan-African digital media organization based exclusively on social media platforms, focusing on giving a voice to all Africans both at home and abroad. In reality, the only voice it gives is to Kremlin propagandists. RT's expanded covert capabilities allow it to deepen coordination with traditional Russian intelligence services as they work to manipulate the outcome of democratic elections in the United States, but also around the world. For years, RT and its employees have coordinated directly with the Kremlin to support Russian government efforts to influence Moldova's elections, including the October 2024 presidential election. RT's leadership has leveraged Russian state-funded and directed media platforms to attempt to foment unrest in Moldova, likely with the aim of causing protests to turn violent. We believe RT will almost certainly leverage its expanded covert capabilities to coordinate with Russian intelligence services to try to manipulate the outcome of Moldova's upcoming election. As a result of these findings, today, we're imposing sanctions on 3 entities and 2 individuals for Russia's covert global influence operations, including interference in Moldova's democracy and its upcoming elections.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken today at the State Department. The United States has unleashed sanctions and visa restrictions targeting those the Biden administration accuses of interfering in Venezuela's recent presidential election and silencing opposition voices. That was the opening line from a UPI article. It goes on, 16 officials aligned with Nicolas Maduro, Venezuela's authoritarian president, were sanctioned Thursday, including members of the National Electoral Council, known as the CNE, and judges of the Supreme Tribunal of Justice. Military intelligence and government officials were also hit by the Treasury. Venezuela has been again plunged into a political crisis as the United States and other democratic nations reject the legitimacy of CNE-announced election results that say Maduro won a 3rd term in office in late July's presidential contest. Reporting from UPI. John Kirby is the White House National Security Communications Advisor. He spoke about Venezuela in an audio news conference.
We know that the sanctions were announced. What is the next step after the sanctions were announced? The government of Maduro, of course, condemned them. Is a possibility or is in the works to go back to the Qatar talks, and how you see the relationship between Iran, Russia and Venezuela, as well as China, in the middle of this crisis? Do you believe that Maduro will get closer to them as sanctions get stronger against his government? Thank you.
Mr. Maduro's got choices and decisions that only he can make. We've made it very clear to Mr. Maduro that the first decision he needs to make is to release all the election data and the results so that the whole world can see how that election unfolded and how and to what degree the Venezuelan people's will was actually met here and seriously considered and reflected in those votes. We issued sanctions. We're not going to take anything else off the table going forward. Again, there's the first decision before Mr. Maduro, and quite frankly, the most important decision right now for him, is whether or not he's going to do the right thing by the Venezuelan people. Now, he has to make that choice. And if he doesn't, we'll have to make some additional choices of our own. As for who he's cozying up to and trying to partner with, I mean, he can speak to that. We're focused on making sure that the Venezuelan people's aspirations are met. We're making sure that the democratic institutions and democracy is upholded to the best that it possibly can be. And obviously, when it comes to this or any other hemisphere, we're focused on making sure we can meet our security commitments and preserve our national security interests. And that certainly includes in the Western Hemisphere.
The White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby in an audio news conference. More from the United Press International article. Since the election, the Maduro administration has detained more than 2,400 people who have taken to the streets in opposition of his rule and issued an arrest warrant for opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez on charges of terrorism, conspiracy, and other crimes related to the election. He has since fled to Spain. This is Washington Today. Today is the 30th anniversary of the signing of the Violence Against Women Act into law in the United States. NBC News writes that President Joe Biden on Thursday commemorated the anniversary, hailing it as his proudest legislative accomplishment during his more than 5 decades serving in political office in Washington. The Violence Against Women Act broke the dam of congressional and cultural resistance, brought this hidden epidemic out of the shadows, and began to shift the legal and social burdens away from the survivors and onto the perpetrators where they belong, Biden said on Thursday, addressing survivors, advocates, and allies on the South Lawn of the White House at an event commemorating the law. That was from NBC News. President Biden introduced the Violence Against Women Act for the first time in 1990 when he was a senator, and then it became law in 1994. President Biden on Thursday, during a speech, also spoke of new efforts to address gender-based violence.
Today, I'm proud to announce the new significant actions. A record of nearly $700 million in grants this year alone to more than 40 VAWA-funded programs in states, tribal communities across the country. $700 million. We're also issuing new policies to expand housing protections for survivors, give law enforcement more tools to remove guns from domestic abusers, and we're tackling the next frontier of gender-based violence and abuse, deep fake images and videos generated by artificial intelligence. Back in 2022, we established civil protections for those whose intimate images are shared without their consent. It's now a crime. Today, in response to my call to action, we received new commitments from leading technology companies to combat the creation of exploitive deepfake images and to stop distributing and making money off this kind of sexual abuse, which they're doing now. Folks,
President Biden on the White House South Lawn Thursday night, a program marking the 30th anniversary of the signing of the Violence Against Women Act into law. The anniversary date is today. Cape Canaveral, Florida, Associated Press. That article begins, stuck in space astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams said Friday it was hard to watch their Boeing capsule return to Earth without them. It was their first public comment since last week's return of the Boeing Starliner capsule that took them to the International Space Station in June. They remain behind after NASA determined the problem-plagued capsule posed too much risk for them to ride back in. That was from AP. Here's part of that news conference. You'll hear the answer from Butch Wilmore.
Our next question will be with Tom Costello with NBC News.
Hi, Butch and Sonny. Nice to see you both. Butch, I can't believe how fast your hair has grown in the few months you've been up there on station. Can I ask you this question? I'm just wondering, recognizing that you're both team players and veteran NASA astronauts, do you feel let down by Boeing and Starliner and the fact that this is clearly not something you planned for your life?
Let down? Absolutely not. Never entered my mind. I don't think Sonny's either until you mentioned it. It's a fair question. I get it. I can tell you, I thought a lot about this press conference and what I might say, what I wanted to convey. And there's no way to convey every single piece of information that needs to be said to understand a majority of the questions that we might get asked. But I will say this, Sonny's got this shirt on, it's got that NASA meatball, we call it, on it, and that represents something that we stand for as an agency. We go beyond. We do things that are out of the ordinary. We send humans to space, and yeah, we're here today on the space station. Even today, this operation, this is not easy. NASA does a great job. The people at NASA do a great job of making a lot of things look easy. Sending probes beyond the edge of our solar system, going and getting sample from asteroids, humans in space. And it's a very risky business, and things do not always turn out the way you want. Before we launched, we said, we're going to find things. Yep. That is the nature of test. Every single test flight, especially a first flight of a spacecraft or an aircraft that has ever occurred, has found issues. That's things that you just cannot think about. 90% of our training is preparing for the unexpected. And sometimes the actual unexpected goes beyond what you even think that could happen. And that's just the way it goes sometimes, because we are pushing the edges of the envelope in everything that we do. And it is not easy.
Astronaut Butch Wilmore on the International Space Station, and beside him is astronaut Sonny Williams, part of a news conference today with reporters on Earth. Their first comments since they were unable to return to Earth back in June, and NASA says that they will be coming back on a SpaceX vehicle next February. The newest U.S. Senator, George Helmy, Democrat from New Jersey, is finishing his first week on the job. He was sworn in Tuesday. He was appointed to fill the seat of Senator Bob Menendez, Democrat of New Jersey as well, who resigned after being convicted of criminal charges. Senator Helmy attended hearings this week on the two committees he sits on, Foreign Relations and Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs. Here is Senator Helmy Thursday at the Banking Committee on protecting senior citizens against scams. He was welcomed by Senator Tina Smith, Democrat of Minnesota.
Senator Helmy, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate being here and appreciate this being my first opportunity on the committee and to speak about the timeliness of this issue. Literally this morning, one of the first calls I took was from a consumer protection advocate in one of our more populated county talking about this hearing and what she is seeing in seniors in Hudson County, New Jersey. So to Ms. Knopfsinger, thank you for being here and for the work you're doing, especially what your organization is doing in New Jersey. And to Ms. Lieberker and Harris, thank you for your service and the ever-growing, unfortunately, importance of your positions. I would just pick up a thread that was left about this importance to New Jersey. According to the FBI's most recent IC3 Elder report, New Jerseyans reported over $100 million in losses to scams and frauds, predominantly among our elder community, which is a huge sum to anybody, but specifically as you talk about fixed income communities, it's a massive amount.
Senator George Helmy, Democrat from New Jersey, at a Banking Committee hearing on Thursday, just 2 days after being sworn in following his appointment. He is not running for the seat in the November election, so he'll leave when the newly elected senator takes the oath around January. Thanks for listening to Washington Today. Subscribe to C-SPAN's free evening newsletter, Word for Word, and get the stories making headlines in Washington emailed to you every day. Sign up at cspan.org/connect. Have a good night and weekend.